I had always been the type of guy who believed in hard work and partnership in marriage. For 5 years, I juggled two jobs to build a comfortable life with Amy, my wife, who I thought shared my values. Everything changed when she discovered those TikTok videos about being a high-value woman. The day she handed me a spreadsheet demanding $2,000 monthly for the privilege of being with her was the day I realized our marriage was over. Hey everyone, where are you watching from today? Hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever seen someone completely transformed by social media. When I first met Amy during our senior year of college, I was immediately drawn to her intelligence and ambition. I was 24, studying computer science and working part-time at a local tech startup. She was pursuing a marketing degree and had big dreams of working for a major advertising agency. After graduation, we both landed decent entry-level positions in Austin and started building our life together. The proposal happened 3 years into our relationship during a weekend trip to the Gulf Coast. I spent months saving for the perfect ring, not because it needed to be flashy, but because I wanted it to be special. When Amy said yes as the sun set over the water, I truly believed we would grow old together. Our wedding was modest but meaningful. Both sets of parents contributed what they could, and we covered the rest. We bought our first apartment a year later, a small 2-bedroom place that needed work, but it was ours. Weekends were spent painting walls, installing fixtures, and turning that space into our home. Amy had an eye for design, and I had enough basic handyman skills to execute her vision. Those were genuinely happy times. The first 3 years of marriage were everything I had hoped for. We supported each other through career changes and family difficulties. When my father was diagnosed with cancer, Amy was my rock, driving 4 hours every other weekend to visit him in the hospital. When she missed out on a promotion, she had worked incredibly hard, for I was there to help her through the disappointment. The trouble began subtly around our 4th anniversary. The economy took a downturn, and the marketing agency Amy worked for lost several major clients. She was among the second wave of layoffs. Initially, she was optimistic about finding a new position quickly. She had an impressive portfolio and solid industry connections, but weeks turned into months, and the job market remained brutal. I picked up additional contract work to ensure we could maintain our lifestyle while she searched. My regular 9-to-5 job as a software developer paid well, but the extra 20 hours of freelance work each week meant we would not have to dip into our savings. I did not mind the long hours. We were a team, and I knew Amy would do the same for me. As her unemployment stretched on, I noticed she was spending more time on social media. At first, it seemed like a harmless way to network and stay connected professionally. She created accounts on platforms she had never used before, including TikTok, which she had previously dismissed as for teenagers. She explained that understanding these platforms would give her an edge when interviewing for digital marketing positions. The first real change I noticed was in her language. She began using terms like leveling up and knowing her worth in everyday conversations. When we would talk about her job search, she started rejecting opportunities that she deemed beneath her new standards. A perfectly respectable position at a smaller agency was dismissed because the office did not look prestigious enough. An interview with a former client was canceled because the starting salary was disrespectful. Around this time, our joint credit card statements began showing purchases from high-end clothing retailers and beauty services I had never heard of. When I gently brought it up, suggesting we might want to be careful with expenses while her income was on hold, she became defensive. "I need to look successful to be successful." Jameson, she explained, showing off a $700 blazer she had purchased. "This is an investment in my future. No one hires someone who looks desperate." I trusted her judgment and backed off. After all, she was the marketing expert, and I wanted to be supportive. But the expenses continued to increase, and the job search became increasingly selective. 6 months into her unemployment, we had our first major argument when she came home with a $2,000 designer handbag. "We cannot afford this right now," I said, staring at the receipt in disbelief. "You cannot afford this," she corrected me. "I deserve nice things, Jameson. All the women in my networking group have bags like this. Do you want me to look like the poor one?" That was when I first heard about this networking group. Women she had connected with through TikTok, who met weekly for brunches at expensive restaurants to discuss wealth strategies and value maximization. From what I could gather, none of these women actually had careers. They were focused on building personal brands and monetizing their femininity. I worked 60-plus hours every week, while Amy spent her days creating social media content and meeting these new friends. Our physical intimacy dwindled, and meaningful conversations became rare. When I would try to discuss our future, or the state of our relationship, she would accuse me of low-value thinking and scarcity mindset. By the time our 5th anniversary arrived, Amy had transformed into someone I barely recognized. Her natural brown hair was now platinum blonde, her wardrobe entirely replaced with designer labels, and even her speaking voice had changed to match the affected tone of the content creator she followed. Our home had become a makeshift production studio. The spare bedroom was filled with ring lights, backdrops, and props for her social media posts. She would spend hours staging photos in our apartment, making it look like she was at exclusive restaurants or luxury hotels. Sometimes she would borrow my car to take pictures in front of mansions in the wealthy neighborhoods, pretending they were properties she was considering purchasing. One evening I arrived home exhausted, after 14 straight hours of coding, to find several maxed-out credit card notifications on my phone. Digging through the statements, I discovered $2,700 spent at a high-end furniture store. The strange thing was, there was no new furniture in our apartment. "The furniture is being stored at Lindsay's place," Amy explained when confronted. Lindsay was one of her new friends from the networking group. Her house has better lighting and staging potential for my luxury living series. Our apartment looks too middle class. The statement stung. We had chosen this apartment together, celebrated milestones here, built memories within these walls. Now it was apparently too embarrassing to be featured on her social media. "Amy, we need to talk about our finances," I said firmly. "I cannot keep working these hours to fund a lifestyle that exists only on TikTok." She rolled her eyes and mumbled something about my limited vision before announcing she had scheduled a business dinner for us that weekend to discuss our partnership agreement. That Saturday night, we went to an upscale restaurant Amy had selected. The prices on the menu made me wince, but I kept quiet, hoping this dinner might actually help us reconnect. After ordering, Amy pulled out her tablet and opened a PowerPoint presentation titled, "The High-Value Partnership, Redefining Our Relationship." For the next 30 minutes, while other couples around us enjoyed romantic dinners, I sat in stunned silence as my wife delivered what amounted to a business pitch. According to her presentation, she was now a high-value woman, a status she claimed was supported by her appearance, domestic capabilities, though she had not cooked a meal in months, and social connections. This status apparently had a price tag. Based on market research and consultation with my coaches, she explained in a tone one might use with a slow child, my baseline value as a wife is $2,000 per month, paid directly to me as a personal allowance. I nearly choked on my water. "You want me to pay you to be married to me. I want you to invest in the privilege of having me as your wife," she corrected, sliding a printed contract across the table. "Many women in my position would charge much more, but I am being reasonable because of our history." The contract outlined her services, including accompanying me to work functions, maintaining her appearance, and intimate relations twice weekly scheduled in advance. In return, she expected the monthly allowance, complete control over household decor, and weekly appreciation gifts of her choosing. "What happens if I refuse?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Her smile tightened. "Then I find someone who recognizes and appreciates my true worth. There are plenty of successful men in this city who would be grateful for what I offer." I barely remember the rest of that meal. My mind was cycling through memories, trying to pinpoint exactly when my wife had transformed into this stranger across the table. How had the woman who once drove 4 hours every weekend to support my family during a health crisis become someone who saw our marriage as a transaction? At home that night, I suggested couples counseling. Surprisingly, Amy agreed, though she insisted on selecting the therapist. The woman she chose, Dr. Marlowe, turned out to be a relationship coach who specialized in helping men understand female value. Our first and only session consisted mainly of Dr. Marlowe explaining how fortunate I was to have such an evolved wife. That evening, scrolling through my social media feed, I came across a post Amy had made earlier that day. "Imagine working so hard to elevate yourself, only to have your partner try to clip your wings. Some men cannot handle a woman who knows her worth." Number, high-value woman. Number, know your worth. Number, settle for nothing. The comment section was filled with sympathy for her and criticism of her unnamed husband. I recognized several names, mutual friends, and even a couple of my co-workers' spouses, all offering support and outrage on her behalf. Through mutual friends, I learned Amy had been crafting a narrative about our relationship for months. According to her version, I was controlling, stingy, and threatened by her growth. People who had been to our home, who had seen firsthand my 60-hour work weeks, and Amy's unemployment somehow believed that I was the one exploiting her. The final breaking point came 3 weeks after the business dinner fiasco. While using our shared tablet to pay bills, a dating app notification appeared on the screen. Amy had created a profile describing herself as financially independent and considering her options. She was still wearing her wedding ring in the profile pictures. That night, lying awake beside my sleeping wife, I finally accepted what I had been denying for months. This marriage could not be saved. Any attempt to reason with Amy would be reframed as me trying to control or diminish her. If I filed for divorce, her narrative would be that I abandoned her when she was finding herself. Worse, given her skill at manipulating perceptions, I might end up paying substantial alimony to maintain her established lifestyle. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in years and made an appointment with a lawyer. The consultation confirmed my fears. Texas is a community property state, meaning assets acquired during marriage would be divided equally, including my retirement accounts and savings that had grown while supporting both of us during her extended unemployment. Document everything the lawyer advised. Financial records, social media posts, text messages, anything that demonstrates financial irresponsibility or infidelity. It will not guarantee protection, but it gives us leverage. For the next 2 weeks, I became a digital archivist of my failing marriage. I downloaded Amy's social media posts, particularly those contradicting the lifestyle she was claiming in divorce court. I took screenshots of the dating app profile and recorded her browser history, showing frequent visits to the site. I organized all financial records showing my income supporting our household while her contributions dwindled to zero. I secured all important personal documents, birth certificate, passport, irreplaceable family photos, and moved them to a small safety deposit box at a bank Amy did not know I used. I gathered the few sentimental items that truly mattered to me: my grandfather's watch, a signed baseball from my father, and the journal I had kept since college. The hardest part was reaching out to people I had lost touch with during my marriage. I sent awkward messages to old friends and family members I had neglected, while working double shifts and trying to save my relationship. To my surprise, most responded with warmth and concern. My college roommate Brian, now living in Houston, immediately offered his spare room if I needed a place to stay. I found an affordable one-bedroom apartment across town that required only first and last month's rent, with no lengthy lease term. Over several days during my lunch breaks, and when Amy was out with her friends, I gradually moved essential items: some clothes, basic kitchenware, my work equipment. 2 months after the high-value woman conversation, Amy announced she was going to Scottsdale for a women's empowerment retreat with her networking group. The 4-day trip would cost nearly $3,000, which she put on our joint credit card without discussion. I did not object. This was the opportunity I had been waiting for. The morning after she left, I executed the remainder of my plan with methodical precision. First, I visited our apartment management office and removed my name from the lease, explaining that I was relocating for work. I had already paid my portion of the rent for the next 3 months to avoid immediate legal issues. Next, I contacted every utility company and subscription service in my name: electricity, water, internet streaming services, meal delivery kits, wine club memberships, and the numerous beauty box subscriptions Amy had accumulated. I did not cancel them vindictively. I simply removed myself as the responsible party, effective at the end of the current billing cycle. At the bank, I withdrew exactly half of our joint checking account, the mathematical portion of my contributions, minus joint expenses, and closed my access to the shared accounts. I left all accounts with her name untouched, including her personal credit card that I had been paying. Back at the apartment, I packed the last of my belongings into my car. Standing in the living room one final time, I felt a complex wave of emotions: grief for the relationship we once had, relief at escaping the toxic dynamic it had become, and anxiety about starting over at 32. I left my keys and wedding ring on the kitchen counter, along with a printed document containing login information for all the accounts I had removed myself from, contact information for the utility companies, and a breakdown of the financial curse. Arrangements I had made. There was no angry note, no accusations, just facts. As I drove away, my phone began buzzing with notification after notification. Amy had posted a poolside selfie from her retreat with the caption, "Leveling up while lesser men level out. Number unbothered queen." The comments section was filled with fire emojis and supportive messages. If only they knew. 3 days later, the texts and calls began flooding in. Amy had returned to a dark apartment with disconnection notices from the utility companies. Her initial messages were confused, then angry, then pleading. I did not respond to any of them. "This is financial abuse," she texted. "You cannot just disappear and leave me with nothing." The truth was I had left her with exactly what she had contributed. Access to an apartment with 3 months' rent, paid all her possessions and her own financial accounts. Untouched. What I had removed was myself and the resources I had been providing that she had deemed insufficient. She created a series of tearful TikTok videos about being abandoned and left destitute by her husband. Her followers rallied around her, offering support and condemning me as the villain in her story. Some even started a crowdfunding campaign to help Amy rebuild. But my lawyer was already handling communication, sending Amy a formal letter with the evidence package I had compiled, the dating profile, the social media contradictions, the financial records, and the high-value woman contract she had, presented at dinner. The message was clear: pursue me legally, and all of this becomes public record. The first weeks alone in my new apartment were darker than I had anticipated. Despite knowing I had made the necessary choice, I battled waves of guilt, grief, and disorientation. The silence was both a relief and a burden. No more walking on eggshells, no more funding an unsustainable fantasy lifestyle, but also no more shared meals, inside jokes, or planning for the future together. I threw myself into work initially, taking on even more contracts as a distraction. My health suffered: insomnia, weight loss, constant tension headaches. It took a concerned intervention from Brian to convince me to see a therapist. Dr. Hoffman specialized in recovery from manipulative relationships. In our sessions, I began to recognize patterns I had been blind to: how Amy had slowly isolated me from friends and family, how she had reframed her exploitation as my privilege, how she had constructed a false narrative that made confrontation impossible. "What you are experiencing is similar to grief," Dr. Hoffman explained during one session. "You are mourning not just the end of your marriage, but the person you thought you married, someone who never truly existed." That framework helped me process the complex emotions. I was not just losing Amy. I was losing the future I had imagined with her, and the past I thought we had shared. Meanwhile, Amy's attempts to locate me evolved from pleading to threatening. She showed up at my workplace, contacted my parents, and even filed a missing persons report that was quickly dismissed when the police confirmed I had left voluntarily and was in regular contact with family members. Through my lawyer, I maintained minimal factual communication. When she demanded access to my new address for divorce proceedings, we arranged to use a post office box instead. When she claimed I had stolen property, my lawyer provided inventory lists and photographs documenting that I had taken only personal belongings and items I had purchased before the marriage. The evidence package proved effective. After her initial attorney reviewed the documentation, Amy suddenly became more amenable to a quick, quiet resolution. Her social media narrative shifted too: fewer victim posts, more vague references to growing through challenges and embracing new chapters. Some mutual friends who had initially sided with Amy reached out after seeing the contradictions in her story. I did not engage in gossip or recrimination, simply thanked them for their concern and changed the subject. The truth was, those relationships had been irrevocably damaged. I was learning to be selective about who I allowed into my new life. Rebuilding was a deliberate process. I joined a local hiking group to force myself out of isolation. I reconnected with former colleagues for occasional happy hours. I took a cooking class, partly to learn a practical skill, and partly to establish a routine that got me out of the apartment. My career benefited from my renewed focus. With fewer financial demands, I scaled back the freelance work and invested more creative energy in my primary job. 6 months after leaving, I received a significant promotion and the option to relocate to the company's Seattle office, a fresh start in a new city. Around this time, the divorce papers were finalized. The settlement was straightforward. No alimony, no continuing financial entanglements. Amy kept the apartment and its contents. I kept my retirement accounts and personal savings. The legal costs were substantial, but worth the clean break. Shortly before I moved to Seattle, Amy made one final attempt at reconciliation. Her TikTok following had plateaued. The dating scene had not produced the wealthy benefactor she had hoped for, and the reality of supporting herself had finally sunk in. "I made some mistakes," she texted. "We had something good before all this. We could try again, build something better." I felt no satisfaction in her reversal, only a calm certainty that I had made the right decision. I wished her well and reaffirmed that our relationship had reached its conclusion. The move to Seattle marked the true beginning of my recovery. The physical distance provided perspective, and the change of scenery helped disrupt patterns of thought that kept pulling me back into the past. A year after the high-value woman conversation that ended my marriage, I found myself on a ferry crossing Puget Sound, watching the city skyline shimmer in the distance. For the first time in a long while, I felt genuine hope for the future. Looking back, I could identify the red flags I had missed or excused Amy's growing materialism, her shifting values, her willingness to exploit my labor, while devaluing my contribution. I had remained committed to a partnership that had become fundamentally one-sided. The experience taught me vital lessons about self-worth boundaries and the importance of reciprocity in relationships. I learned that love without mutual respect and shared values cannot sustain itself, no matter how much effort one person invests. Today, I am building a life defined by authentic connections rather than superficial appearances. I choose to surround myself with people who demonstrate their values through actions rather than social media declarations. I have learned to recognize the difference between someone who wants to build something meaningful with me and someone who simply wants to use me as a stepping stone to the lifestyle they feel entitled to. The painful end of my marriage ultimately led to a more genuine beginning. In losing someone who viewed me as a resource to be exploited, I found myself, and the strength, to demand better. Have you ever had to walk away from a relationship that became one-sided? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to support the channel. Remember, sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most necessary beginnings. Thank you for listening, and I hope my experience helps someone else find the courage to choose self-respect.